Good evening, everybody. My name is Thomas Sheedy, president of Atheists for Liberty. Welcome, everybody, to the channel. We're continuing our weekly streaming series. I'm so glad to have all of you on board. Oh, we have some background audio there. So glad to have all of you on board in seeing Atheists for Liberty promote more content and bring on a wonderful array of speakers. We just recently got back from CPAC 2023, where we had an array of amazing Atheist for Liberty staff members, advisors, and guests. Once again, for our fourth year in a row, bringing the atheist activist message to the Conservative Political Action Conference in a time when politics is getting wackier and crazier than ever. So we're growing the amount of activities that we do offline. We had a regional meetup a month ago in New York City. We had CPAC, and we're continuing to expand across all 50 states. So a lot of the content that you're seeing online, we're transferring a lot of that into community programs in a city near you. And as our state director programs and as the interest grows state by state in what we are up to, we're so glad to be able to get the opportunity soon to meet each and every one of you as we rebuild a once amazing and emerging movement. But we're continuing our online content here. And I really want to make sure that this series continues to expand and we bring on more guests from an array of backgrounds. And I've been wanting to get this guest on for a very long time, but I'm glad this series is continuing to gain interest from all of you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in right now. So with this series, like a lot of you have heard before, not only do we defend Enlightenment Values as an organization, but we seek to platform the greatest minds of the 21st century. And this guest is no exception to that statement. So I will be introducing her in just a moment. But first, I want to mention our member of the week. Our member of the week is Robert Kittle. Be like Robert and become a member today at atheistsforliberty.org, guys. All donations are tax deductible. We really thrive on individual small contributions to continue to do what we do, to have these growing meetups that we're having in all 50 states, to go to events like CPAC to normalize atheism, to platform more people online and offline, to do our online programs and our educational activities. So we really appreciate having you join as a member, guys, and having you become a part of our community. We have an awesome Discord server and Facebook group. So really looking forward to seeing more and more of you become part of our team. So I'm going to be introducing today's guests, and we're going to go straight on into it. Yasmine Mohammed is an Arab Canadian University educator, activist, and author who advocates for the rights of women living in Islamic majority countries, as well as those who struggle under religious fundamentalism. She's the founder of Free Hearts, Free Minds, which provides psychological support for free thinkers living in Muslim majority countries, where the state-sanctioned punishment for leaving Islam is death. She also serves as an advisor at the AHA Foundation. Her book, Unveiled, is a memoir slash polemic that recalls her experiences growing up in a fundamentalist Islamic household and her arranged marriage to a member of Al-Qaeda. She has spoken in Canadian Parliament and has been featured in many mainstream media publications such as CNN, CBC, BBC, ABC Australia, Al Jazeera, New York Times, and many more. She has spoken in Ivy League universities such as Harvard, Stanford, and Dartmouth, and for many organizations, including the Freedom from Religion Foundation, AHA Foundation, Ayn Rand Institute, and Think Inc. And we're proud to have her as an advisory board member of Atheists for Liberty. Yasmine Mohammed, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Thomas. I'm sorry it's taken us so long to be able to do this, but I'm glad we finally are.
I'm glad we finally are too. We've been working like kind of on and off for like 13 months to make this happen. Way more of my fault than yours. Scheduling issues, of course, and time zone differences, but mainly just the fact that every time we saw an amazing opportunity to get you on the program, something crazy has happened either in my life or in Atheists for Liberty schedule, or we're at a conference or we're doing something, and it just got pushed for over a year. So we really should have had you on sooner.
That's right, because you know what? In that span of time, we got to have drinks together. So
that's true, we did.
That's so much more. Yes, that's right.
Now I'm glad I can finally announce a bit more of what we did, but I guess we'll go into that more once we talk particularly about that topic. But I'm so glad that we have you on. It's very fitting actually that we have you on today, because yesterday was International Women's Day. You know, so one thing that I love about holidays such as International Women's Day, that we get to highlight, the struggle that women face across the world. But the problem is often it's events like these that Western media organizations and corporations and outlets, they use these holidays to promote false agendas and political propaganda that doesn't actually assist, women's rights activists around the world. That doesn't actually highlight real problems that actual women are facing, but rather promote either woke dogma or just corporate marketing that just has no real meaning, in my view. And one thing that we did, though, within us at Atheist Liberty, is we did promote International Women's Day, but we wanted to do it by actually signaling to people that there are women in Muslim-majority countries throughout the world who are facing real oppression, where feminism or liberal activism is greatly needed in those places compared to your typical American or Canadian university in most cases. And you have just been an amazing champion of young women and girls, around the world. Definitely you more than me and more than a lot of us at AFL. One of the key questions I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the core problems facing young women and girls today around the world that we as an organization here, such as Atheists for Liberty and other activists watching from around the world, should pay attention to?
Well, I think one of the most dire situations for women around the world right now is obviously in Afghanistan. I'm sure you've heard that girls there are not allowed to go to school, that women are being prohibited from getting divorces. I mean, you can't even go to the park as a woman. So you're imprisoned in so many ways. And that's the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. And of course, the Islamic Republic of Iran has similar type laws against women, such as the hijab laws, which I'm sure everybody has heard about by now. I hope they've all heard about by now, that women need to wear their hijab in a certain way that is deemed, appropriate by the religious police. Otherwise, the women will get imprisoned, beaten, tortured, raped, and sometimes even killed. And then, they can't even ride a bike. Riding a bike is criminal in Iran. Singing is criminal. Like the things that we don't even think of as rights, but we just think of as normal human functions, are prohibited for women, criminalized for women in a lot of these Islamic theocracies. So I think on a global scale, there are a lot of issues that are affecting women in a lot of different ways. Here in the West, the erasure of women is a major concern. But for me and the work that I'm doing through Free Hearts, Free Minds and through Forgotten Feminists, and just my focus is mainly on women in not only in Muslim majority countries, but women from those communities, because quite often the same issues that you're seeing happening in Afghanistan are also happening in the UK or in Canada or in the US or Sweden, because the people who have this mindset don't change their mind when they change their geographical location. They bring these ideas with them, and they treat their daughters and their sisters, or their wives in the exact same way.
Right.
So that's where the focus of my work is these days.
Obviously, for those that usually watch this program, we don't take a stance usually on foreign policy. But it's interesting that you bring up Afghanistan. Afghanistan, for a long time, we were trying to mold into I guess you could argue, more secular country than it was when we arrived, fighting the Taliban for years upon years until we pull out. The United States, at least, pulled out in August of 2021. Do you think that it was a mistake for the United States to pull out the way that it did, seeing that Afghanistan overnight turned, into an Islamic theocracy, into, Talibanistan overnight, immediately prohibiting women and girls from attending school, immediately disregarding all the work that we did to try to make Afghanistan a peaceful and more secular and enlightened place to live in. Do you think that we should have stayed, that there could have been a different plan? Because I know also right now we are supposed allies with the Taliban. I guess you could say they're the enemy of our enemy, since they're fighting ISIS also there. Do you think that it's And this, I guess, another follow-up question. Do you think that it's a waste of time for us to be quote unquote allies with these people when, even though they might be fighting a similar enemy to us, they still stand for the same dogmas?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a slightly different kind of terrorist.
Mhm.
You know, like that's the difference between the Taliban and ISIS. They're following very similar dogmas. They have slightly different ways of going about it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions in that. You asked me a lot of questions in succession, so I'm going to try and touch on most of them. First and foremost, yes, I do think that the way that America left, of course, was quite drastic. I wish that it had been more planned. It wasn't quite so chaotic. But I don't think that America would have made much difference staying there much longer. I don't think that it was, I think leaving was the right thing to do. It was just the way that they'd left. And part of the reason why staying there for 20 years and then leaving, you didn't really see that significant of a difference in the country is because of what you just identified there. We are allies with the Taliban. That's the problem. The problem was that even while we were there, the work wasn't being done the way I think it should have been done, the way most enlightened, rational thinkers think it should have been done. For example, I'm sure you heard of situations like the bachabazi, which is something in Afghanistan. It's a systemic rape of little boys. And when the American soldiers would speak to their supervisors or their superiors about that, they were told not to say anything and not to intervene because it's their culture. And so it doesn't matter if they stayed there for 20 years. It doesn't matter if they stayed there for 200 years. If you're not doing the work of actually trying to enlighten this group of people, then you're not going to get anywhere. As long as you keep on saying it's their culture and we will ally with them, then I don't know how
Right.
you expect any progress to happen. But we see the same thing happening here on our soil. You see, like, I think there's obviously a significant difference between how we're going to treat Afghans or Taliban even in Afghanistan versus how we would treat the exact same situation happening on Western soil.
Right.
But unfortunately, even here, we have the same appeasement. We see the same capitulation. We see the same tropes of it's their culture, it's their religion. We have to, accept it. And that, I think, is very, very dangerous. Cultures don't progress unless there is criticism and unless there is reason to grow. A very drastic example I'll give you is Saudi Arabia. They continued to have slavery until the 60s. And the only reason why they stopped was because Britain said, we're not going to help you get that oil out of your ground unless you prohibit slavery. And so, they were forced to do that, not because they wanted to, not because it was a value that they agreed with, but because that this would allow them to get oil and to make money. So there has to be pressure against barbaric practices. We can't just say, oh, it's their culture. And if we want to do business with Saudi Arabia, then we have to accept they buy and sell humans. It's their culture. We can't do that.
No.
Right. And unfortunately, there's so much of that going on. And that's basically the subtitle of my book.
And God, I had an amazing thought about this. Oh, yes. Okay. So, and this is one of the problems that I see. We domestically, especially because atheists, we're a domestic organization. We don't actually get involved with international matters that much. I see a massive issue already happening right now where we're seeing the growth of Islamic fundamentalism in places like Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York. Obviously, you saw what happened at the Chautauqua Institute in New York, where Salman Rushdie was attacked and basically is now half blind and has a bunch of other health complications. This happened back in July or August of 2022. This is stuff that's happening in the West today. not even just a European problem, or you could argue, oh, Europe had more open borders, and so more of these people came on through and settled in.
Mhm.
No, this is happening in the United States. This is happening in North America. This isn't something that's changing at all. And unless we have a more hardline attitude, like the British had when it came to dealing with the Saudis in
Mhm.
the 60s, we're going
Mhm.
to be in a boatload of trouble. But I think the thing that scares me is obviously you have the woke left in the United States defending Islam in the name of diversity. It's one
Yeah.
of the matters that woke me up to the problem of wokeism in the first place. Seeing one of the most barbaric belief systems in human history defended in the name of, oh, we can't criticize that, it's their culture. And then on the other hand, now, and I know this is actually what we spoke about a little bit in October and what others are speaking about, there's a fundamentalist Christian right, parts of the old religious right that are kind of remaining, but also kind of this new tradcath right that are defending Islamic fundamentalism because
Oh yeah.
they're in favor of religion governing everything and being super based. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to comply with it because that's awesome. They're super trad just like us. Um, Regardless of what side, what extreme ends up winning at the end of the day, we're screwed unless we have a hardline stance against this stuff from day one. Democrat and Republican, from state legislatures to the halls of Congress to village town halls, we have to stop this stuff everywhere we can, tooth and nail. The First Amendment is not going to be the one thing that prevents this stuff from growing because it's still happening, in places where American free speech is seen as absolute and is going to protect the rights of women and girls, is going to protect Enlightenment values. I'm not so sure about that. And actually, this is a great way to kind of segue into our second question here. One thing I've always admired about you, Yasmine, is in the, I guess, firebrand v. diplomat debate, you've always been one of those hardliners that just speaks the truth, that doesn't sugarcoat things, but sometimes angers the room. Even if that room is filled with allies that want to help us out in a few different topics, you state some blunt truths. You don't hide your atheism. You don't hide the fact that we need to, in the debate for reforming Islam, we need to include ex-Muslims, people that have completely left the faith in the conversation. We need to admit hard, blunt truths about what Islam has done to the world and what
Mhm.
Islam has done to the West and what Islam has done in corroding human rights. And yeah, you're seen as a firebrand who is proud to announce your atheism and the need for more atheists to speak out to differentiate themselves from Islamic reformers. Um, I remember, and I told you I'd mentioned this story. We were in Salzburg, Austria, a few months ago, and we're both really good friends with Azra Nomani, who is a kind of moderate, liberal-leaning Islamic reformer. She wants me to review some of her work, and I'm actually in the process of doing more of that now. And I remember actually being super excited about that opportunity that I even thought for a second about having her join the Atheists for Liberty Advisory Board. And this is, not me stating the following with any criticism of her at all, but I remember rescinding that. And I remember you saying when I asked Azra that on the stairwell in Austria, you're like, Thomas, she isn't an atheist. Like you talked to me as if like you were really surprised that I asked Azra that question. I'm actually very glad that you did, because soon after I actually reconsidered what I said on that. I think we need to be truthful more often. When we talk about Islam and when we make allies with Islamic reformers, and how much of a pressing issue do you think that is as we're trying to build coalitions of people with like minds and trying to make Islam, I guess, a little more reformed, or a little more neutered?
Yeah. So Asra is a really dear friend of mine, and I love her. I really do. Like she's a really pure, true, honest human being. But this is Atheists for Liberty. So although she is for liberty, she's certainly not an atheist. She is a Muslim reformer. So that's why I was highlighting that fact. But if for you to review her work or review her book or whatever, like, of course that has nothing to do with it. She doesn't have to be an atheist for you to be able to do that. But I think that so clarity, which I know that you're planning on mentioning later, but what I want to say is that we're in our work together, we have to sort of have, we have to do things purposefully. So if it's Atheists for Liberty, then our work is going to be around secularism and atheism and Enlightenment values. Whereas together we work with Muslim reformers, Jewish people, Christian people, non-atheists and atheists in other organizations that are coalitions working towards a different common goal.
Mhm.
And that common goal is against Islamists. So it really depends. I'm always very happy to link hands with anybody that I can to work towards common goals. I don't care what their religion is or what their ethnicity is or what their gender identity is. None of that matters to me. It's so rare for me to find someone who is actually interested in the same things I'm interested in. You know, somebody was just saying to me earlier today, you know, Yasmine, I just noticed how much hate you get. He's like, not only are you hated by Muslims because obviously you're speaking out against Islam and you should be killed for that because you're an infidel. You're also hated by racists on the right who hate you because you're Arab and they feel that you shouldn't be in their country. And then you're hated by the secular people on the left who hate you because they think you're Islamophobic because you're speaking against the sweet little minority group of Muslim people.
Yeah, you just won the lottery, did you?
Yeah, that's right. So when I meet someone like you or someone like Asra, I'm very happy to link hands and work together. But like I said, I think that needs to be done in a purposeful way. As much as I adore you, I wouldn't invite you to speak on Forgotten Feminists because it's all women, right? So that's just yeah. That's just
I don't think I fit in there quite well.
You could identify. That's all you need to do.
Oh boy. Yeah, these days, right?
Yeah.
Maybe on April Fool. Oh no, I can't. But great idea. Maybe April Fool's Day. I'll be like the next guest on.
I'd love that. Keep your scruff just as it is.
Oh, grow it out.
Grow it out even better. Just put a wig on, some makeup. Perfect. You're done.
That's going to be genius. But guys, that's totally not going to happen at all. But so I'm very glad that you're passionate about that because too often I've seen people in this culture war too concede towards religious believers or concede to religion in the effort to have a bigger tent in order to be a part of a bigger fight. Now I'm always in favor of a big tent. You know, we just got back from CPAC. We've talked to a bunch of Christians who like the idea of us promoting secular government and fighting back against wokeism from a secular perspective and building up the conservative movement from an atheist lens and all these amazing, wonderful things. But simultaneously, we're atheists. We have to be proud about who we are. Let's not fake who we are just because we might want to make nice with this one person, or we don't think this donor is going to like us, or this media outlet won't platform us. Okay, that media outlet might not platform us, that donor might not support us, but then there's going to be a ton of other people who don't think we're a genuine cause as a result of that. And too often, too, we don't have enough firebrands that speak out about important issues. So ever since I discovered you when you were actually on the Rubin Report a few years ago, I always saw you as that firebrand that never, ever apologized, that never, ever, ceased to be truthful about their views. You've always been out there, and I really do appreciate you for it. And I think more people should take things out of your playbook because, Islam's not going to be reformed, fully anytime soon. Right now, we need people to speak loudly to get the attention that our causes and our organizations need to get.
Absolutely agree.
So, obviously being a firebrand is something that's very important. I literally just talked about it 2 seconds ago. But sometimes there are great times to make nice and to build coalitions of people who might not fully agree with us on every single issue. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of an awesome organization that is growing called the Clarity Coalition. You invited me to become a founding member of this organization. It blossomed right out of the AHA Foundation. It went from being just a project and a thing discussed at a few conferences to being a full-fledged coalition of activists, journalists, and politicians from around the West and around the world. And I'm so thrilled to be on it. We all got together. This is where we met in person for the first time in Salzburg, Austria, for the Clarity Coalition's annual hopefully annual conference, where we, in a workshop setting, discussed ideas as to how we can prevent Islamism from corroding more of our institutions, and to how we can grow that coalition even further. We spoke a little bit backstage before we went live on the air about some details about the coalition, but I don't think a lot of people within Atheists for Liberty, actually, but also just general people within the culture war, know what the Clarity Coalition is and what your vision is for how the Clarity Coalition can blossom and can prosper if you were given every key to the castle to do whatever you wanted. So I'd like to know from your lens, first off, what is the Clarity Coalition? Because I don't know it all.
Yeah.
But also, what can people do to support this coalition, and what do you think is the best vision for this coalition to succeed moving forward?
Okay, so first of all, the acronym CLARITY stands for Champions for Liberty Against the Reality of Islamist Tyranny. So Islamist tyranny, right off the bat, we're not speaking of firebrands. I was involved in creating that acronym. So we're not tiptoeing around the issue.
Right.
Anybody who is a part of the coalition is somebody who very strongly recognizes this danger and is willing to stand up against it. So like you mentioned, we've got many organizations that work with us, and we've also have individuals like journalists, politicians, activists, all sorts of different people and different backgrounds as well, different identities, right? Men, women, atheist, Christian, Muslim, ex-Muslim. And the thing that all of us have in common is that we all recognize this danger, and we're not willing to tiptoe around it. You mentioned Salman Rushdie being stabbed. That is one example of what ends up happening when you become complacent, right? Unfortunately, after that happened with Salman Rushdie, obviously it was unfortunate in so many different ways, but we really hoped that would open people's eyes to how dangerous it is to criticize Islam, and to have people more willing, because this was actually Salman Rushdie's advice. He was saying that if they try to shut you up, this is a bad quote, but essentially he's saying if they try to shut you up, sing louder.
Right.
And I love so many of his quotes. He has another one where he says that they can control you by fear. So what you need to do is to choose to not be afraid. And he gave us so much sage advice that we take on at the Clarity Coalition, and we use that advice to fuel us. We have our website, which we're working on improving at the moment, where we post statements where we believe that the Clarity Coalition's voice is important. One such situation was at Hamline University, where there was a professor, an art history professor, that was showing a piece of medieval art that was painted in Persia. And it was a painting of Muhammad receiving his first revelation from Angel Gabriel. Well, a Muslim in the class got so offended at this that she took it up with the Muslim Students Association, and the president of the university ended up sending a letter apologizing that the professor of art history had the audacity to show some medieval art in her classroom. Tragic. Even though it was in the syllabus and everybody had been forewarned. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the worst part of all of this is that the professor had said that the feelings of the Muslim students supersedes academic freedom. So to see those words being uttered by a university professor in the United States of America, I mean, if we are not at this point in time so scared, so irrationally afraid of Muslims that we're not willing to stand up for our most basic values, that's terrifying. People like that professor like to pretend that they are the ones that are fighting against Islamophobia. Well, they are the ones who are being truly Islamophobic, because that is an irrational fear of Muslims for her to respond in that way. She's so afraid of offending Muslims that she's willing to throw academic freedom in the United States of America under the bus. I mean, it's beyond embarrassing. And you know, so those are the topics that we focus on and that we support and that we, you know, speak out against. And we're really proud to have you, of course, in the coalition, Thomas, and we're hoping to grow it more and more. So anybody who's listening now who believes also that they can contribute to this fight against Islamists, then please go to our website, claritycoalition.org, and click on the Join Us button.
Yes. And for anybody as well who wants to quickly get a link to get there, and to also follow the Clarity Coalition on Twitter, that the tag for the Clarity Coalition is actually in my Twitter. So if anybody goes to the Atheists for Liberty Twitter, so actually I'll do a little bit of a plug for AFL Twitter, but then they can get to the Clarity Coalition Twitter this way. So guys, go on Twitter, follow us on Twitter at Atheist Liberty. In the bio of our Twitter, it says run by @SheedyTom. You click that. And then in my bio is at Clarity Coalition in there. Follow all three.
Follow the yellow brick road.
But also follow Yasmine Mohammed on Twitter too. And
That's
all of her links, by the way, are in the description of this stream. All of her social media links. So go in there and go support Yasmine too. But follow everything. We all need more Twitter followers anyway. So if you're active and you want to get more involved in the culture wars, you got to follow us on social media. So go on Twitter, follow at Atheist Liberty, but then follow Clarity Coalition through my own Twitter as well. And we need more followers in the coalition too. And I am just absolutely thrilled to be a part of this coalition. And I always found myself, at least envision myself as being the domestic, non-ex-Muslim atheist in that fight to bring more awareness of what ex-Muslims are facing to, I guess, a more mainstream atheist audience. Because we need everybody in this fight. Islam is not going away. It's going to be around for a very long time. And we have to make sure that the West continues to live. We have to make sure that the Enlightenment values that we have built continues to live. That freedom of speech and everything that makes our nation, speaking to all the Americans here, great, continues to persist, continues to prosper. And that can't happen if we are faced with more human rights violations, faced with more free speech violations, faced with more Americans being killed in the name of people wanting to push their religion onto others and also fly a few planes into buildings. That's not really helpful for anybody. So Yasmine, I really appreciate you being on here and for me asking you these questions. So before we get to the Q&A, I actually want to give you the opportunity to make that announcement that I know you wanted to make before we went live on the air. So one quick thing, everybody should go and click, or at least open a new tab in the header, guys, of this video. We tagged Yasmine's YouTube channel. So if you open a link in a new tab, guys, go ahead and subscribe to Yasmine's channel right now, because your announcement has a lot to relate to that.
Yeah. So the organization that I run is called Free Hearts, Free Minds, and it is an entirely donation-funded organization. And we have constantly people sending us messages for support. So what we do essentially is we support people who have denounced Islam and who are overcoming the religious trauma, or as we've coined it, Islamo-trauma, of overcoming that religion. As you mentioned earlier, Thomas, in my bio, the punishment for leaving Islam is execution. That is the punishment that we're supposed to all receive. And so a lot of people who leave Islam are living in fear. I myself did not open my mouth for almost 15 years. I stayed silent because of that fear. I was living in Canada. I wasn't afraid from my government. I was afraid from my family. I was afraid from my ex-husband, who, as you mentioned, was an Al-Qaeda terrorist. And obviously he has a network of friends all over the world. But this isn't just me and my story. It's a very, very common story that people who leave Islam end up being discarded by their family, their friends, their community, because they do not adhere to the values of the religion anymore. And so what we offer at Free Hearts, Free Minds is an opportunity to give them a new community, to give them a warm embrace and somewhere to come where they can speak freely without being judged, and where they can learn the tools on how to rebuild their life. So we have an 8-step program that they go through as a group. And so they build community, they build a network, they build friendships. And so it fills the void that that leaving Islam, that all of the people that have left our lives. So it refills it with people that you choose and people who love you for who you are, for your authentic self. They don't love you just because you happen to adhere to the same cult, but they love you because of who you are as an individual. So the big announcement is that up until now, from 2017, Free Hearts, Free Minds, because of our limited funding, we've only been able to help people in Muslim majority countries. But right now we have just decided that we can expand. We are ready to expand to the rest of the planet. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can go to freeheartsfreeminds.com, click on contact us, fill in the form, and join one of our programs and get that support that you need. And of course, we desperately need donations from anybody who is interested or willing, or who cares about these people that are living in these very difficult circumstances. You can click on testimonials on our website and read some of the stories of people that we've helped. And then I hope you'll also click on the donate button and help us to help more people all across the planet.
It's a very noble cause, and I'll be sure that once we clip this out and make more videos and tag everything in there, to include all the links in the description below. So anybody who is already supporting Atheists for Liberty and wants to help out more, wants to help out this noble cause, can do so appropriately.
Thank you, Thomas.
So let's get on into the Q&A. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate all of you for sticking on through, already going 37 minutes in. We've already spoken so much about quite a lot, and we're only 37 minutes in. So I'm really excited to see what questions and comments we have, but I'm going to make a few announcements before we go in there. Guys, we're on Facebook. So if you have a Facebook account, go to facebook.com/atheistliberty to see more announcements as to what we have going on there. We have a big age range of people, and we know that not everybody is 15 years old and uses TikTok or Snapchat all the time. We also are on Facebook too. And so we're going to be active on Facebook too. So if you have a Facebook, we understand you don't have every social media account yet. So we're here for you. So facebook.com/atheistliberty, please go ahead and like and follow us there. So let's go ahead and showcase some comments and some questions. Hey, Mars, hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in. This guy's always one of the first people to comment, and he even included a little emoji. Mars has always been so helpful. Sometimes when I need backup actually in StreamYard, Mars offers to come and help. So Mars has not only been a member and supporter of Atheist Liberty, but he's also been an amazing volunteer. So Mars, I'm so glad to see that you're tuning in. Hey, Jenny, hope you're doing well. Loved chatting with you yesterday, and thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to have an awesome Borderline after party. It's going to be great. We get together, a lot of us, we actually get together and do an after party in our group Discord server. Might even be doing more events where we ask advisors to join in soon. So everybody, be sure to join our Discord if you become a member of AFL, because we have some surprises in store for all of you. Hey, Kayla, thank you so much for tuning in. There's a bit of a theme. We have a lot. We have a growing amount of female members of AFL, and when I told the volunteers coming on, they were all like, "Oh my God, Yasmine's tuning in. I have to tune in. I have to pay attention."
I'm really happy to hear that, because as you know already, our demographic is mostly male, right? It's a lot easier, I think, for men to admit publicly their atheism in the world, not just anywhere else in the world, but even in America. So it's quite rare to find. I'm really happy to hear that your organization, that the women in your organization are growing. That's great to hear.
By quite a lot. We had like 6 different volunteers at CPAC alone that were women, as well as supporters and people coming up to our booth and people, excited as heck to say they want to sign up and be members. And this is from the conservative movement. This isn't from a more
Mhm.
liberal sphere of things. And so it
Mhm.
makes me very happy about the future of our
Me too.
organization, because optics is also everything. I remember we tabled at Freedom Fest 2021. This was nearly 2 years ago at this point. We were in South Dakota, and we had the morning shift at the booth. I actually wasn't there, but Michael Shermer was. He decided to go ahead and stop by the Atheists for Liberty booth to say hello and to see what we were doing. And there were like 7 to 8 guys that were there at the booth, and he was like,
That's so
"Wow,
cool.
quite the sausage fest that you guys have going on."
Yeah.
And the moment my board chairman told me the story about what Michael Shermer said, I was like, "Shucks, like we need to work on that."
It's not Atheists for Liberty. I mean, I'm really happy to hear that Atheists for Liberty is growing, the women on your team.
Yeah,
But that's just atheists in general. I
yeah,
think we're about 80% male globally. So this isn't on you, Thomas.
yeah.
That's just the
It's just
demographic of
like
atheists.
I've noticed that usually anything that's like statistically controversial in the early stages of any like cultural shift, usually it skews male in the beginning, and then as something becomes more normalized, like females come in too, it
Absolutely.
kind of evens things out a little bit more. So we're still in the early stages of atheism becoming normalized more, everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
come on in and help even the playing field. But we don't do we also don't do gender quotas in our organization. We judge people based on their merit and their character. So I don't care if you're a man, I don't care if you're a woman. If you have the skills and the abilities and the tenacity to see change in this country and to promote Enlightenment values and the mission of Atheists for Liberty, we want to have you on board. But we also want to make sure that our environment, while not ever, 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 ever drinking woke Kool-Aid, we try to be as inclusive to as many people as humanly possible. We like to have a big tent, with the exception of the people who don't want a big tent.
Well
Amazing
said.
how Kayla's comment just like triggers that whole discussion. I think she'll like that. We could turn that into a whole clip. But Kayla, thank you so much for tuning in. Ryan, hey, how's it going? Ryan says hello. Ryan
Hi.
Tuttle, he's our New Hampshire state director. Love that you're tuning in. Thank you so much, Ryan. And actually, Ryan is asking the first question. Wasn't the media telling
Right.
us that Afghanistan was committed to progressive values? I thought it was a haven of Enlightenment values and progress and women's rights, especially. I just think that it's like it's heaven on earth. Yes, and
Yeah.
I think if
Yeah.
anybody criticizes it, they're racist.
Islamophobes.
They're Islamophobes. They're racist. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they actually did use the word progressive, actually, and humanitarian, and like the most ridiculous words. And I remember going on the news in the early days when it was still like Justin Trudeau and Jacinda in New Zealand, and all of these world leaders were thinking that, oh yes, we're going to be. I mean, we even had in Canada our minister for women called the Taliban brothers. That's how desperate they were to make nice with these terrorists. And I'm like, how short are your people's memories? Because I know you were alive in the 90s. Y'all aren't that young, right? You remember what happened in the 90s. You are aware of what happened, of how the women were covered head to toe in these burqas and how the girls weren't allowed to go to school. I'm sure you've heard of Malala Yousafzai. Like none of these things, this is not new information, people.
Right.
But for some reason, they had such short memories and they thought, well, they've completely turned it around. They're totally different people now.
For like 10 years.
So embarrassing. Yeah, it was so disheartening, so frustrating. One of the many moments, Thomas, that I've had in the past few years of just feeling like, is this like the upside down? Like, is this real life? Is this actually happening? Like, are people really sending private planes to pick up Taliban so that they can bring them to these board meetings where they can have discussions about human rights. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. They have always been terrorists. They always will be terrorists. There is no surprise. What they did now in Afghanistan is no different than what they did in the 90s, and they're not going to change because the ideology itself has been the same for 1400 years. And so I don't know what they think is going to change over a few decades.
And that's why we have to be the firebrands that we are, drawing a line in the sand. Like it doesn't matter what foreign policy actions are happening in the American politic and the American media. Islam is Islam. Granted, let's team up with reformers. Let's support human rights. Let's support freedom of religion. Yes, not all Muslims. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Not all Muslims are. In fact, I would argue most, especially Westernized Muslims, are not, people that are going to cause a problem at all. But we need to be truthful as to what is within the tenets of Islam and the problems that it has caused upon the world, the thousands upon thousands of humans that have lost their lives just in this fight alone. And it's not going to stop unless we take a stand now. So we just need to talk to each person individually and get more of a team going, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But yeah, Afghanistan, not a haven of progressive values, Ryan. But I appreciate the question. Jenny asks, have the recent protests in Iran improved the situation for women at all?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jennifer, and I'm glad you asked it because I saw the most wonderful video today that was posted by Masih Alinejad, and it was the religious police. The religious police are men and women, by the way. So this was a religious police, a Basiji woman on the bus, and she started attacking another woman because she wasn't wearing her hijab properly. And the rest of the women on the bus attacked the Basiji woman. They attacked the religious police woman, and they told her to leave the woman alone and she can wear whatever she wants, mind your own business. And then they started chanting "Woman Life Freedom." And this revolution has definitely empowered the people of Iran in Iran. And it has also become, because we cared globally, because we paid attention globally, that's what's made all the difference. And obviously the women in Iran have been fighting for over 40 years. They've been fighting since this Islamic regime came into place. I mean, the women being imprisoned happened almost immediately. Forcing women into hijab happened almost immediately. So it's been really great to see that finally their fight, after all of these decades, is being recognized, and there is a coalition of Iranians who are working together to have a replacement for the Islamic regime. Plans are already in place that once this regime falls, what are our next steps? The question isn't even, if they're going to fall, but it's when they're going to fall.
One thing I also want to add on to this, and this is something I'm very proud of, something I did as an individual and also as president of Atheists for Liberty, but something I think that more of our Atheists for Liberty volunteers should be involved in at plenty of local universities around the country. I was just at my local university in Stony Brook here. The Iranian Scholars for Liberty, this organization, they have campus chapters, graduate student chapters around the country. They do protests for representing and trying to highlight the issues that women in Iran face around the world. I was there along with a few other people. I got some photos for Atheists for Liberty, and I tried to highlight some of the events that were taking place there, and I actually tagged the Clarity Coalition in there too. I think that the Iranian scholars could use a little bit of help when it comes to advertising themselves on social media. But there's a lot of great, hardworking activists that are trying to put up these events at universities across the country in all 50 states and in Western countries around the world. And I think it's very important for us as supporters of Atheist Liberty, but also Enlightenment Values, freedom of religion, freedom from religion, to get involved. So I highly suggest all of our volunteers to check out the local university near them and to see if there's an Iranian Graduate Student Association there, because often there are these protests that are happening that we can definitely get more involved in highlighting these problems within. I have a friend who's actually part of the local Stony Brook chapter. He's a member of AFL. He can't go back to Iran because he knows that the moment he gets back there, he's going to get the news automatically. He knows it. And I'm doing whatever I can to make sure he's as comfortable here as possible. I work with him in politics. I work with him in local activism. But any time that he has a protest, representing the Iranian scholars, I make sure that I'm there. I got my camera out, and I'm doing whatever I can, even as an outsider, to assist. Because especially within the West, we need to do what we can as activists who have more time, who have more freedom to speak up when others can't.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Jenny. And yes, we're going to rename Afghanistan to Talibanistan.
That's what it should be called.
That's going to be like my new AFL executive order. That's going to be the new language within our group. Maybe we'll make that a meme. Well, we have some people. Actually, Jenny is part of the team that has been turning stuff into memes and stickers. I think I'm going to make an executive order. Talibanistan is going to be our newest meme. It's funny, but also it's not. Yes, it is. Yes, it is funny. It's very funny. An ally, match made in hell. Yeah. Taliban's not really our ally. I don't think we should be helping.
Not at all. Not in the slightest. Yeah.
Sargon of Akkad's secretary or assistant column. He recently came out with a documentary. I think this was several months ago, back in August, where he visited Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. I was very surprised that nothing bad happened to him. I would not want to go there if I had for $1 million. Actually, maybe for $1 million, but I'd have the largest security detail ever. I don't think I'd be welcome. I don't think I'd be safe even as a man in that country, because I'm an evil heathen. I'm an evil atheist heathen American. And if you're a woman, forget about it.
Forget it.
Mars says, I think I heard a story about a SEAL hearing about a kid getting raped and the SEAL getting written up for beating the snot out of the rapist.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Not shocked either. Vlad the Chad says, glad she brought up Bacha Bazai. I hate to say it, most feminists and women don't care about male sexual abuse victims. I'll say maybe woke feminists,
yeah,
it's highlighted within maybe Western feminist circles.
I think that just because if a person is a feminist and working with women's issues, they are inundated and overwhelmed already. So if they don't speak about male sexual abuse victims, it may not necessarily be because they don't care, but it could possibly be because we only have a certain amount of bandwidth. And as activists, sometimes you have to pick your battles because there's just way too many battles. And I get this criticism a lot when I'm talking about FGM, female genital mutilation. I'm obviously against the mutilation of any children's genitals, whether they be male or female, clearly, right? But when I'm speaking about female genital mutilation, it's because that's what predominantly happens in Muslim majority countries, and that is what is supported by Islamic scripture. And so then that's sort of within my, what I'm speaking about in women's issues. Right. But of course, there are a lot of people speaking out against, male circumcision. And I support those people entirely, even though it's not one of the focuses of my activism. It doesn't mean that I don't care. It's just that there are so many things in the world that are very dark and terrifying, and that I would love to be involved in trying to, help as many people as I can all the time. But realistically, I have to limit how much time I can wallow in the darkness without losing my sanity.
Well, it's like what woke people said in the atheist community. Oh, you guys are caring about atheism. Why don't you care about Black Lives Matter? Because we're the atheist movement. We're not BLM. We're not hashtag BLM. We shouldn't be talking about guns. We shouldn't be talking about BLM. We shouldn't be talking about issues that have nothing to do with religion or atheism or anything pertaining to opposing religious dogma or promoting secularism.
It's exhausting.
Same thing here. Yeah, I want to save all the puppies and save the environment, but I can't do everything at once. So that's just the truth about activism, guys. Danik Martinez says, "Hello, Yasmine. Such an honor to have you here in our group. A heroine who has fought for human rights, risking hate. AFL did an excellent job in inviting you in a day after Women's World Day." Thank you, Danik. Means a lot, and great seeing you in person in New York. Hope to see you again soon. Yasmine is a gift. Yes.
Thank you, Vlad.
Brought from Al Qaeda.
No, I was never a part of that group. Sometimes people who just like read things like skim too quickly, they think that I was ever involved in that. No, obviously I was never involved in that. Or I was one of the very many women around the world who was stuck in a situation because I was terrified.
Yeah.
Not because I chose to be there.
And not too many people know of the actual horror and abuse that you face as a result of that. We actually, speaking of the women of AFL, a lot of them have actually read your book, Unveiled, and I highly recommend that more people, pick up a copy and read it. And not to mention, guys, if you actually want to upgrade your memberships to the all-around heretic level, that's $20 a month or more. We actually are planning on trying to get more signed copies of books to release them to more people. Actually, that's something that we do need to talk about more. We would love to give all of our $20 a month members or more a signed copy of Unveiled, and we're willing to buy as many copies as possible to make that happen. But it is a perk, and we want to support our authors, especially those who have written works that really shape humanity. And I would consider Unveiled to be one of them, and it's written in a variety of languages too. I snagged a copy for free when I was in Salzburg. I'm like, I'm taking one of these. I don't have one on my shelf.
Did you get it in German, French, English?
I made sure to pick up I think there was only one English copy left.
Oh, good for you.
I'm taking this right now before everybody, because nearly everybody who was at the Clarity Coalition event, so it was in Salzburg, Austria, obviously a German-speaking country, but nearly everybody who was there spoke English.
It's because I did the invitation list, and obviously most of the people that I know speak English, but there were quite a few French and German speakers there, but they were bilingual, of course, because otherwise how would I even know them?
I actually, when I was in Salzburg, it was my first time actually leaving the United States ever. And
oh, wow.
I found it to be very fitting. Yeah, actually, that's true. I've done a lot of work in the U.S. Kept myself to be very U.S. centric, U.S. chauvinistic a little too much.
No, but that was so great. I wish that I had known that. Then you and I could have gone and visited Mozart's house or done some more stuff together. That's a huge deal. It's your first time out of America. Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be awesome. But I remember actually going to Salzburg. I kid you not. The one place that I went to when I landed was McDonald's.
Of course. You had to be that straight white American male, didn't you?
You ask the majority of our AFL people, they'll know I just eat McDonald's and burgers all the time. But I remember everybody there spoke perfect English. I felt right at home.
Yeah.
So
it's that everywhere in Europe.
Very very American. Felt proud to be there. But I would love to go to Austria for the next conference. I don't know what the coalition is going to choose for next year whenever we meet next time. But
it's probably going to be New York. So unfortunately, we're not going to get you out of the country this time.
And you're not going to get me out of the state because that's where I am right now.
Oh, sorry. But
let me know where
after that, I'll let you know for sure. But our plan is to do domestic, international, to try and get as many people as we can, give them the best opportunity to be able to attend. Because a lot of people couldn't make the trip across the pond to Europe.
New York too. God, this is something we have to talk about, off the air. If it's in New York too, definitely we should get talking, because maybe Atheists for Liberty can help help out with that since we're based in New York.
Absolutely. 100%. I will take you up on that offer.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, guys. Some planning is now in the works, so be sure to hear about that. So we're going to do a few more questions and showcase a few more comments, and then we'll get off the air. So Ryan saying Andrew Tate, Sneeko, Sterling Cooper all praise Islam. Yeah, and I don't like that.
That's the type. Well, that's the type. That's exactly who you'd expect to praise Islam.
And I don't like that really, because being an anti-woke person, I would argue, I guess I'm not a men's rights person. I'm not a male activist, but I would argue that, with wokeism engulfing all of our institutions, definitely there is definitely a bias now, thanks to wokeism and extreme feminism in the West, against men's rights, against people speaking out in favor of, upholding masculinity too. How we should praise femininity within girls. I think we should equally praise masculinity within guys. I understand why so many young men and boys are looking up to like Andrew Tate and Sneeko and all these people, and they have such massive platforms. They have an ability to communicate to people and to show them, okay, woke feminism is crazy, but Islamic male chauvinism is also an awful thing too, and we should oppose that. Because Andrew Tate, like literally, I don't know everything about the guy, but he gained fame through, I think, the cam girl business and opening casinos in Romania, doing a bunch of things that Islam, at least I don't think Islam would permit. He's not the greatest example of a loyal follower of the Islamic religion. Same with Sneeko. Not by any means at all. So I find it to be, not only do I find it to be annoying, but I find it to be totally contradictory. A lot of them, just like how I find some atheists that praise Christianity and conservative events annoying, I find people who do this stuff annoying too, because they're doing a disservice to the entire West as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stinks. They have brain damage. I don't know who you were talking about.
Succinct. I think he's talking about the three men that you just mentioned.
Yeah, some of them do.
To the point, Vlad. Yes, I agree.
Vlad also continues there. I'm not going to read out loud what he said after that. Mars saying those red pill guys are morons. Yeah, yes, some of them take that step too far. I'm not a fan of extreme feminism, and I'm not a fan of any kind of gendered extreme going the other way. Obviously, I have some personal views when it comes to gender dynamics and things like that, but these people just take this kind of stuff way too far, and it infringes on a lot of the great work that we're trying to do to improve relations and to promote free speech and expression. Mars saying Osra is awesome. Agreed.
Yes.
God, the problem is all these comments are now piling up. I wasn't aware. TJ Tuttle says, I wasn't aware of the guy's thoughts on Islam. I just figured out he was a tangent figure in the manosphere. I'm assuming he's talking about Rich Cooper or Andrew Tate. I don't know. A lot of them have been going in his Islamic direction, and I'm not a fan of it.
Well, I think Andrew Tate and Sneeko both converted to Islam.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So they more than just speak highly of it. They're
part of it now.
Converted to it. Yeah.
We have Dan Joseph asking, does Yasmine think that the situation for women in Saudi Arabia will improve in the coming decades under NBS's leadership, or do you think he's just paying lip service to Western sensibilities?
I think both. I think he is paying lip service to Western sensibilities, but I also think that the situation for women in Saudi Arabia will improve, and this is why. He is watching what's happening in Iran. And even before what happened in Iran happened, he's smart and he was paying attention. And he saw that if he wants to keep his monarchy, then he has to keep his people happy. And in Saudi Arabia, just like in Iran, the demographic is mostly under 30s. And right. So when you have such a young demographic, it's important to allow people the freedom and the progress that they want. You can't keep on demanding from them very old traditional values that are going to be suffocating them by law and order. So they used to have a religious police in Saudi Arabia as well, and he abolished it. And he did some other things like allowing women to drive. Now, of course, I say that, and this is kind of why I said lip service, because he's trying to keep everybody happy, because he really just doesn't want any problems with losing his monarchy. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
He doesn't want an uprising against him. So what he's done is he's allowed women to drive, but of course, they can't get a driver's license or buy a car or leave the house without a male guardian or without a male's permission. So really what he's done is he's left it up to the individual families. And there's a lot of conservative families. And until the conservative, like the older generations of very conservative, very religious, very fundamentalist, older men and women, as long as they're still got their hooks in the younger generation, then it's still going to be difficult for these people to live their lives. However, now they don't have to also fight the religious police or law enforcement or the government. They only have to fight their families. So it makes their lives a little bit easier. So that's why the situation for women in Saudi Arabia will improve, because the women that are coming from families that have more open-minded or liberal thinking. Liberal means something totally different in the Islamic world than it does in the West.
Yeah.
But liberal meaning your parents will not lock you in the house if you refuse to wear niqab. They'll let you wear hijab. You know what I mean? Or if you travel to Europe, they'll let you take off your hijab. So that's what like a liberal family is in Saudi Arabia. So if you come from those kinds of families, or who will allow their daughters to get educated in the West, then you can do that now under MBS's leadership. So he has loosened the control over the people, but he's also left the control in the hands of the conservative families, because he doesn't want to upset the older generation either. So he's being a politician, and that's his job, but he's by no means a humanitarian, or there's horror stories. I mean, you guys have heard of Khashoggi, so the horror stories of this man and what he's capable of. But like all politicians, he's going to do what he needs to do to survive.
Right. Yeah, and we'll have to see the political landscape of Saudi Arabia as things, continue. I know we have a very tight, from a U.S. perspective, we have a very tight relationship with Saudi Arabia. We have so many corporations. It's kind of the same kind of hypocrisy with American corporations, because, like, for example, due to wokeism, every time Pride Month comes around, right, in June, every corporation, car company, they'll have the Pride flag and the BLM, Pride flag on their logos, but the Saudi Arabian version of all those companies will stay blank. We'll bend the rules too, and claim to care so much about human rights, claim to care so much about women's rights on International Women's Day. But when it comes to the real issues that actually face women and girls, that actually face, people that are trying to obtain human rights around the world, it's all show. It's all show half the time. It's disgusting. Saudi Arabia is no exception to that, but being the political junkies that we are, we'll just have to wait and see. Woohoo! Women get to drive under the supervision of religiously conservative families. Liberalism run amok. Yasmine.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so silly. Got Jenny saying, we posted a quote by Rushdie at our most recent event. Yes, we had a fundraising event at CPAC 2023. We had an amazing suite run by our most amazing staff members within our organization. So we actually had a Rushdie quote posted at the event for all to see. What is freedom of expression? Without the freedom to offend, it ceases to exist. Very good quote. Absolutely. And Jenny picked that out, and I appreciate her for doing that.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you for bringing that up. Again, it's all permanent on YouTube now. So we always have the best questions by the best people to put up here. Woke morons are doing this in other social justice realms as well. Pathetic. I'm assuming when we're talking about defensivism, I'm going up and down the comment section. I'm looking at the timestamps as to when they were all when they were all put here. Let's see. Autumn Barand asks, if freedom of speech, assuming that's what she means by FOS, is a God-given right, why does almost, if not all, nations hold different rights for different nations? Some have no rights at all. Is God an asshole, or is he just bad?
Love it.
Let's see. If all nations hold different rights for different nations, some have no rights at all. Is God? Both.
Yeah, all the above.
All the above. Mars says we do try to understand it. We don't make up a fairy tale about genocidal God creating it. Autumn follows up by saying, for all we know, outside what we see is the universe might be a massive black ring of pure nothingness with ancient matter from a universe prior. We have no idea. And we shouldn't claim to. I'm fine with the literal question mark. Well, do you know all this cosmic stuff? When like a Christian apologist, comes up to me. No, I'm not an astronomer, buddy. I'm an atheist activist. That's like literally what I do. I don't know everything in the universe. I don't claim to know everything in the universe. Oh my God, the questions keep piling. All right, let's see. Question for Yasmine. Why are you so
George? Oh, George sent me the most hilarious meme, which is really just funny to people who, well, I think it would be funny to anybody, but he's Egyptian. He grew up Egyptian Christian. And we still, like I was saying to him, he sent me this meme, which was really hilarious. And I said back to him, I said, it's nice that across this religious divide, we can share this trauma together, having both been raised in Egyptian families, whether it was Christian or whether it was Muslim. We have a lot of things that we can cry on each other's shoulders about. But yeah, he is obviously now an atheist, and leaving Coptic Christianity can be difficult, obviously, just like it can be difficult for Muslims to leave, or Christians or Jews or anybody to leave the religion that they're a part of. I think that even though my activism focuses so much on Muslims, ex-Muslims who have denounced Islam, I'm just like back to the question before about not caring about young boys being raped. Of course I care. But there's only so much that I can do. But I love that there are so many Coptic Egyptians that I have in my life, that just because of the fact that they relate so much to what I've been through, because of the fact that we both have this Egyptian commonality. So yeah, I'm actually going to be doing an interview with an Egyptian guy, a Coptic Egyptian, ex-Coptic Christian Egyptian guy tomorrow. So hopefully that'll get posted soon.
Once it's posted, let me know. We'll be sure to share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mars is asking very good questions. At Atheists for Liberty, it seems like Islam is easier to criticize today than it was several years ago, but has the recent and sharp advance of the woke stymied that progress?
Yeah, I think that, Mars, what I think has happened is that, honestly, a lot of ex-Muslims coming up on social media and speaking up and sort of saying it for you has really helped a lot. And Asra Nomani, who is, as you know, because you said that she's awesome, as a Muslim reformer, has said this as well. So even as a Muslim reformer, it was difficult for her to criticize so many of the sexist and homophobic and, violent aspects of Islam. But because ex-Muslims were out there sort of exposing it, it made it easier for other people to sort of come up as well and be like, yeah, what she said. So I'm glad that it feels like it's a lot easier. But I don't know if that's true offline. I know that that's definitely true online for me. I think offline people are still very, very hesitant.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Kayla says, Yasmine's heroism is truly inspirational. I couldn't put down Unveiled, and I hope that we get to read it as a group in Discord. I think that's totally accurate, but we have to edit that comment to say that I can't wait for all of us to read it once Yasmine joins our Discord. I'd like to get you to join our Discord sometime because it's
Okay.
always popping with online events. And I would actually that is a pretty good idea to do more book readings with advisors, and to kind of have you get to meet more fans of your work.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah,
have a lot
and
of
come
Yasmine
to
Mohammed fans in AFL.
awesome. I do go to book readings all the time. So like, book clubs. So if you have an AFL book club and you all read my book and then you have the book club meeting talking about it, then I definitely love to join for sure.
Awesome. We'll make that happen. Kayla, we'll talk and we'll make that happen. Okay. We'll work on it. Dan says, my ex-Muslim atheist coworker is listening with me, and he wants to know if you miss celebrating Eid.
Okay, so your ex-Muslim atheist coworker, if he grew up anywhere in the West, then he should know that celebrating Eid is like boring as fuck. And it was just like when I was in Egypt and we celebrated Eid, okay, sure, that was like moderately fun. But when you're celebrating it here in the West, there's nothing going on. I mean, I used to watch my friends celebrating Easter and Christmas and Halloween and all of these really fun holidays, and I'd be like, we get to go pray at the mosque. that's Eid.
That's a jackpot. Right? I didn't get to do that.
So it was just it's pathetic. No, I don't miss it at all. I honestly don't miss anything about the religion itself. What I do miss, of course, is the community and the fun things that would happen because, like Eid, it would be fun because you're all getting together. Like a lot of me and my cousins would all get together and they teach me how to belly dance or something like those kinds of things. I'm not included in anymore because I'm not Muslim anymore and because I've been denounced by my family. So I miss those aspects of the culture. And obviously, just having friends and family that know this other part of me. But I don't miss anything about the religion whatsoever. I think that Egyptian culture and different Arab cultures have lots to offer that have nothing to do with the religion. But unfortunately, the religious aspects have really overshadowed what these cultures used to be.
Mm-hmm. Got a question. If the Middle East had freedom of religion, how much of the Middle East would come out as atheist or agnostic, do you think?
Huge percentage. And if you look at the Islamic Republic of Iran right now, even though they count them as Muslims, most Iranians are atheists or are Zoroastrians. Very few are Muslims. They are choosing Zoroastrianism because it was the religion before they were invaded by Muslims. I truly, truly believe that if there was freedom of religion in the Middle East, first of all, most of the women would run immediately through the very first open door they can see. Gay people, would also go running out the door. And I think that there would be a lot of sort of Andrew Tate type men, the ones that love their toxic masculinity. They would be the ones who would be crying in the corner because they would be losing this power and control that they have over the population. But if you look at these countries even today, there's always an undercurrent. There's always people looking there, Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, it was like this is why he started doing his translations project, was because his PDF was being shared like astronomically all over Saudi Arabia and Iran and Indonesia and all over the Muslim majority world. And so that's why he started the translations project, which my book is a part of. He's translated my book into 4 different languages. Yeah. So that we can offer these books in people's native languages and then just on their phone so it can be safe. There are so many closet atheists all over the Muslim majority world right now, but they can't speak up. They have to pretend. At Free Hearts, Free Minds, we have so many people that have been married, have children, living true double lives just because there's no other way to survive in those worlds. And so, and people having to do the most, like women having to wear hijab, men having to go to the mosque and pray every Friday. Like you have to perform, this Muslim cosplay to save your life.
Yeah.
And so if you allowed secularism in those countries, you allowed people to choose, they're not going to want to fucking choose this. Most people want freedom. One of the things that I posted on my Twitter today was, there was research done over the past 50 years that shows how the world is, thankfully, it's nice to take this 50-year perspective and see that we are working towards freedom, that no matter how dark and, how evil the dictatorship is, like if you see in China or in Iran, people will still fight back. People still demand their freedom. So yeah, short answer, a fuckload.
Very good. You have Hannah Noir coming in saying, "Hey, Yasmine and Thomas." Hey, Hannah.
She's one of my forgotten feminists.
And Hannah is also one of our active and very loyal members at AFL. She always pops into our Discord server, says hi, is very interactive. Always at the times when I get so tired late at night that I gotta head out. She's always she's more active than I am in the AFL half the time. And so I got to give credit to, because actually a lot of you guys.
And she's in pre-med too. So
yes, she's doing a lot of hard work, and she still wants to continue her activism. So we definitely want to do more work with her as an organization, but I know she's always praised you and all the work you've done. And so I'm so glad that that also Hannah, seeing both of us chatting finally too, kind of a meeting of the minds here. So, but Hannah, I really appreciate you and everything that you've done in supporting AFL and everything we do, and vice versa. I know vice versa, at least. So we'll showcase a few more questions and comments, but then we'll head out. Let's see what we got here. So actually, boom, speaking of Hannah asks, do you think there will be less backlash for criticism of Islam with the current Iranian revolution? In other words, do you think people will accept a more nuanced perspective against hijab?
Yes, Hannah, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that when this first started, we were kind of weren't sure what was going to happen, and we were feeling really disillusioned that major feminists weren't speaking up. And then suddenly you had people like, Oprah Winfrey, like everybody. There has been huge protests all around the world supporting the Iranian Revolution. There was one yesterday in Piccadilly Square in the UK for International Women's Day, which was supporting the Iranian Revolution. And all of the women were dressed up in what's it called, that Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. They were all dressed up in the Handmaid's Tale outfits, which is what Margaret Atwood was basing her book on. People like to pretend that it had anything to do with America or Trump's America. It was all about Iran. That's where she based this story from, the way women were being treated under the theocracy in Iran. So in the beginning, we weren't sure if we were going to have the support of Western feminists, but it took them a while to sit back and watch quietly and carefully before they finally came up and front and center and started to support Iranians. So that's been great to see. And yes, they absolutely have progressed the discussion around hijab more than imaginable. I mean, when you have women that are standing in front of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards with huge guns and bullets ready to shoot these women, and these women are stopping to burn their hijabs in huge bonfires. I mean, that level of bravery is truly inhuman. It's just beyond superhuman. And the thing about these women, too, that you have to understand is it's not just them. And they know this, too. It's not just them. It's all of their family as well is also there. Everybody is at risk when you become an activist in that country. So really it's important to just appreciate how much, not just how much these women have done for bringing this conversation against hijab to the forefront and to allow people to have those nuanced conversations, and how much they have progressed thought in Iran, but what they have done for the world. Because now, back to Mars's question, they've allowed everybody to be able to have this nuanced conversation when it comes to Islamic regimes, where people were too afraid to even speak out against the Taliban before. Now they feel more like, okay, yes, this is problematic. We can talk about this without accepting the term Islamophobic. So yeah, there's still a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of bullshit around hijab, and I'm still seeing it being promoted, especially here in Canada. But I think that the conversation is moving forward, and sometimes things take really long before they ripple through society. But this has definitely been one big, huge boulder that's been dropped, and the ripple effects, I think that we'll start to see them, hopefully, inshallah.
Well, let's see what we can do to speed up that process. And we're going to showcase our last comment, but this I'm not going to have count. We're just going to as Hannah says, I'm actually a first-year med student now. Very awesome to hear. That is great. And please keep us up to speed on everything. We always love celebrating, seeing you go places, especially within the anti-woke community. You've just been making so many inroads. And now I'm going to showcase our last comment of the evening. Nathaniel Wagner says, I wish Hitchens was still with us. He would be constantly sparring with the wokists on a regular basis, and the insults he would be flinging at them would be very, very entertaining. I absolutely agree. He died a few years before wokeism started to become more mainstream in society, and imagine if he
saw it coming.
He did.
He has a lot of prophecies where I listen to him and I'm like, that is just, how did you know? Like, it just, everything that he prophesized came true, but yeah, it is really unfortunate that he's not here. It would have been really nice to just sit back and have so much fun just listening to him eviscerate stupid people. But alas, we have to do the work.
We have to do everything that he could have done in just moments notice.
Exactly.
There's someone who actually made a video, and I don't know how correct he is on this. Someone made a video, I remember watching this a few years ago, where wokeism emerged because Christopher Hitchens died. Somebody was that passionate in the culture wars about genuinely believing that as a talking point. And I think he's wrong, but I really, 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 really want to wish that he's right. Because all we have to do then is find us a new Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
But that's harder.
There's only one. Yeah.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This has been a phenomenal and excellent stream. I want to make a few announcements before we get off, guys. Join Atheists for Liberty today. Go to atheistsforliberty.org. Click Join Us at the center of the homepage and become a member. Some of us are going to be hanging out in our Discord server, drinking and having fun for a few hours after this. You get to be part of a genuine, non-woke, Enlightenment Values, big tent atheist community. And it's only $12 a year. We have different membership tiers with different benefits. Like I said, if you pay $20 a month, you get a signed copy of a book from any advisor that you want delivered right to your door. And we do try to keep our promises. We really do, because we care about all of you. We care about rebuilding what was lost in this new age of reason. So you can support us and make a hell of a lot of a difference by going to atheistsforliberty.org, guys, and becoming a member. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, though. Like this video and hit the notification bell. We're going to be streaming every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be having on more interesting and amazing guests. So please, guys, stay up to speed on this channel. And be sure to also subscribe to Yasmine's channel, which I have tagged literally in the title of this video at Yas Mohammed XX. So go ahead, subscribe to her channel too. Keep up to date with what she's doing as well. Yasmine, really appreciate you being not only a supporter of Atheists for Liberty, but a proud advisory board member of this organization. You've been with us for nearly 3 years, and we've been gradually increasing, our membership and our supporters, but you've done a lot to just show that you've been just an amazing, loyal supporter of this organization. We don't talk to you enough. We really don't. That's one thing I have to apologize to you for right on the air. I want us to work together a lot more often. I can promise you that I'm going to be doing what I can more as a member of the Clarity Coalition to help you in whatever vision you want to see that coalition become. And I want to get you more involved with AFL activities. And I know I can speak on behalf of the staff and board in full unanimous agreement on that.
Wonderful. I look forward to that for sure, Thomas. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, follow us on Twitter, like us on Instagram, and follow us on Instagram. And again, tune in next week at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for our next stream. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.